Well, the season's back. Training camp's on. The first preseason game is just days away. Kylen Mills and I are going to break down the latest. I mean, including Klay Thompson. The more I think about it, the more him being in a contract year is riveting. It's fascinating. Chris Paul's starting the preseason opener. We're breaking all that down next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts, and all our live shows are exclusively right here on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms. It's super easy. It's her name, at Kylen Mills. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at Dog Wild, and this program is still on Twitter at Locked On Dubs if you want to find us there. Kylen, great to see you. How are you doing? Let's start off there. How are you, kiddo? How's everything?
Good. I'm doing great. How are you, Sai? I'm excited because basketball's back. I'm just sad I was flying yesterday, so I didn't get to go to media day. And I know you end up being a little busy as well, but excited that it's here. And it's really cool to see the guys back in uniform, you know, Warriors having their daily press conferences. So it's good. It feels like basketball season.
Absolutely. We're back in full steam. I look, so on yesterday, I had Ryan Leong on the show, and because he was at media day, I wanted someone who's at least there, and him and I go way back, and I feel like for the podcast, he's actually a good fit. So I bring him on every once in a while. And we started talking about Klay Thompson a little bit. I also started having a lot of discussions about Klay with one of our mutual friends. He's a media colleague as well, one of my dear old friends. And the more we talked about it, off the air, I mean, off the record, the more riveting it became, because the only other time I can remember Klay Thompson being in a contract year, don't quote me on this, maybe it happened another time besides this, but the last time he was in a contract year was 2019, and he was kicking ass. It still remains to me a tragedy that he suffered that ACL injury and then the subsequent Achilles injury, because Klay Thompson, I felt like, was emerging before that injury happened and really coming into his own at another level, and maybe we'll never see that now. Maybe we will. Who knows? But Klay Thompson in a contract year. And Kylen, let me know if you think if this assessment is offered or if it's kind of spot on. Klay Thompson to me is the ultimate bachelor, right? He lives the absolute lifestyle of a king. You know, there's enough speculation out there about his dating lifestyle. I'm not going to get into that. It's nobody's business. But the point is, the dude knows how to have fun. He has one of the most awesome dogs on the planet, Rocco, 11 years old, and hopefully going strong. You know, but at the same time, you know, sometimes if you're an individual who just likes to chill and like to have a good time, it could get easy to get distracted. It could become fairly easy to lose focus. And now we have a Klay Thompson who is goal-oriented. Back in April, Woj reported that Klay wants a max deal or something close to that for his next contract, which would pay him at the age of 37, 38, 60, maybe even $70 million. I don't think there's a chance in hell he's getting that. The Warriors have made offers to him that Klay doesn't like. He feels he deserves more. So we're entering this season with Klay in a contract year. And I guess my question to you is, because the more I think about it, the more I'm maybe excited. I like the idea of Chris being motivated. Klay, I'm sorry. I like the idea of the Warriors maybe not giving him that extension to possibly see a more motivated Klay Thompson this year as they pursue a fifth world title in 10 years. What are your thoughts on Klay Thompson in a contract year? Because he's so important to this team. I really do feel like where he goes, the Warriors go. What are your thoughts on that? Does it matter? Is it just a shrug of the shoulders to you? What are your thoughts on Klay entering a contract year? Is it different? Your thoughts?
I think that, first of all, I think Klay should be a lifetime Warrior. I think Steph and Klay should both get that treatment, and Draymond as well. But I think that it could serve as extra motivation for sure. However, I also do think that Klay, we've heard it from Draymond as well, the guys who are vets, I don't think get as concerned or frazzled by a contract year approaching. I think they have the experience and they do a little bit of a better job of being able to kind of block that out, focus on this year. But I will say that from everything that we've heard from Klay Thompson, seen from Klay Thompson, he is in his best shape that he's been in since dealing with those litany of injuries a couple seasons ago. He put in the work in the offseason, had a full offseason where he was healthy. He felt confident in his body. And I think that's going to make a huge difference coming into the season compared to 1 year ago, trying to come back from the injury. I just think that we're going to see a different Klay. And I hope that we're going to see a different Klay. And everything we've heard from not just him, but his teammates, Steve Kerr talking about how Klay is now going to be guarding fours on opposing teams, that he feels like Klay's defensive prowess is back, which I know is something that you and I have talked about, feeling like he still wasn't quite there, at least towards the end of last season, still, was maybe just a step off from where he was prior defensively. But apparently Steve Kerr and the rest of the team is feeling very confident in where he's at. So I think it's going to be exciting. Will it be extra motivation? Maybe a little bit, but I also think that the vets on this team don't get as focused, or they do a better job of maybe than some of the younger guys of being able to push off to the side the fact that it's a contract year. And I don't think it's a question that the Warriors should try to keep Klay, but I think Klay has to be realistic about what he's expecting in that contract.
Yeah.
There also were rumors about Draymond wanting a max extension. I just think these guys have to realize with their ages that they're at, that's just not realistic. So I hope that the Warriors and Klay would be able to come to an agreement, see eye to eye about something that's fair. I think there should be a priority put on Klay staying with the Warriors, but also there has to be some realism from him about where he's at in his career, his age, and kind of what that's going to look like moving forward.
Absolutely. And speaking of defense, Steve Kerr addressed the media today, and he talked about Klay Thompson and his role on defense. The soundbite doesn't include what I think you and I both saw a report that the expectation for Klay defensively this Saturday for the season opener, preseason opener, against the Lakers, is that he's going to be defending the opposing power forward, which is interesting. It's kind of weird because Klay for nearly his entire career has been a wing defender, has been someone who oftentimes has been assigned to the most lethal offensive player in the other team. So I don't know if this is like a step down for him. I don't know if this means nothing, but nonetheless, that's the expectation that he's going to be defending the opposing power forward with Chris Paul starting. And we're obviously going to get into the whole Chris Paul a role as a starter in a moment here. But Steve Kerr addressed that today and his role on defense. And I haven't heard this yet. I don't know if you have, Kylen, but let's hear what Steve Kerr has to say about Klay Thompson on defense.
With that starting lineup, obviously Klay would be at the 3. You talked last year about kind of like the evolution of Klay's game. Do you see him being more of like a 2-3 also now, and possibly even a 4 at times, the way that the evolution of Klay too?
Yeah, Klay, if we play that lineup that I talked about Saturday to start, which I'm anticipating doing, as I said, barring injury, Klay would guard the format. That's he's so physically strong. He's so used to guarding post-up players after switches. So we're thinking Klay can guard as a 4 this year. We're going to put him in coverage, where he's having to defend pick and roll as a 4. That would be a different job for him. But we're planning on doing some of that and seeing how he does.
Oh, so it wasn't that sound clip. There you go. So so Steve Kerr plans on putting Klay Thompson at the 4 defensively. The chat is not happy about that. Your thoughts, Kylen?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by that. Based on what we saw last season, I just alluded to it in my last statement that I think that Klay lost a slight step in, his defensive abilities, his quickness, but also though, does he have, that's interesting. Klay is 10 pounds heavier than Wiggs. Does he have the strength? Does he have the size to guard a power forward? I mean, that's my biggest question. I think it's an interesting choice. I think that I am not a fan of the Warriors going with the small ball lineup. Kevon Looney, I think, needs to be a starter. The Warriors already struggled with a lack of size last season, and I don't see Klay guarding a 4 helping the Warriors. That's for sure. I don't know. I mean, with Draymond's injury, I think it's an interesting issue. I mean, I know with Draymond healthy, though, there was talk that the Warriors would go small and that Kevon Looney would be in the second unit and that Chris Paul, Steph, Klay, Wiggs, Draymond would be the starting 5. I hate that. With Draymond injured, I would like to see not just Kevon Looney, but I would mind seeing like Dario Saric in the starting 5 and adding some size in that way.
Agreed.
I'm not sold on having that 3-guard lineup of Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, that it's going to be successful with the age and size of those 3 players. And then, if Draymond's healthy, he's the 5. I guess Wiggs is the 4 or whatever. I don't really know, but Yeah, I'm not a fan. What do you think?
I agree. And I feel like Kerr is trying to acquiesce to everyone's feelings and trying to, prevent players from getting upset. Look, Greg Popovich is considered one of the greatest coaches of all time. In my humble opinion, he's on the Mount Rushmore of coaching alongside Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, Red Auerbach. And Greg Popovich got a massive contract extension this offseason. The dude might be coaching until he's 90. More power to him. I bring him up because during the San Antonio Spurs media day, I believe this was yesterday, don't quote me on the day, but he said something very interesting. He was asked about the San Antonio Spurs starting lineup because apparently in San Antonio, I don't know the specifics, but there's a debate there about who's going to start. And his answer was phenomenal. Here is Greg Popovich talking about the value of starting in the NBA.
Have you had any discussion with some of those guys about possibly coming off the bench? And do you think whoever does that will handle it well?
I've had no such discussions with anyone. Manu Ginobili can come off the bench. Anybody can, and I don't want to hear it.
There you go. What else needs to be said? If Manu Ginobili can come off the bench, anybody can come off the bench. And I think that was very well said, right to the point. The value of starting, to me, is so overblown. Yet for some reason, these players like Chris Paul, we've heard all offseason how much he begrudgingly may accept coming off the bench. Klay Thompson does not want to entertain that, as evident by Steve Kerr constantly scoffing at any notion of Klay coming off the bench. I don't get it. It's really bizarre. When we come back, Kylen, I'd love to get your response to what Popovich just said. And then we're going to talk about Chris Paul starting Saturday's game. There's a lot to talk about. Got to give some love first, though, to Ibotta, one of our longtime sponsors. Look, Kylen, you're all about saving money, right? Have you used Ibotta, by the way? I'm guilty of not downloading it. I feel awful.
Yeah, I have. It's cool.
I just don't shop that much. That's my main reason for not doing it. But the holidays around the corner, right? So have you saved money? Are you getting money back? What's your experience?
Yep, I've saved money. I've gotten money back. It's really cool because you just scan your receipts. After you buy things, there's things in the list. You can go in and look and see if anything that you bought added up. But yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, totally. And like I said, if I ever get out there and shop, maybe I should probably try it myself. But look, if you're out there ordering food, right? It's football season. Maybe you're getting pizza, wings. If you're shopping for clothes, it's getting cold. Again, the holidays, the engine of our economy is just around the corner. You're spending money, folks. You have to. So why not get some money back? And that's where Ibotta really comes to play. It gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation/corporate greed no matter what you're purchasing. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's that easy. You heard Kylen just say it as well. If I ever get out there and shop, I'm going to use it for sure. Download the Ibotta app now and use the code LOCKED, LOCKED, to start earning real cash back. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use the code LOCKED, LOCKED. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store. And remember to use that code, folks, LOCKED, LOCKED.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Everydayers, you folks out there who are loyal, who come to us every day, we can't thank you enough. Kylen, you're going to be back on the show soon. Saturday night is the preseason opener. We're going live right after that. We have not discussed that, you and I, Kylen, so if you're available and you want to join me, that invite's obviously open. But regardless, follow us on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. Follow me on Threads at Dog Wild, and follow Kylen Mills on all social media platforms at her name, Kylen Mills. It's super easy. You just heard Greg Popovich say, cut it out with overinflating the value of being a starter. What's your reaction to that?
I think that, I don't know. I think that there's certain NBA stars who still put value into that because it's an ego shot to come off the bench.
Yeah.
Even though realistically it shouldn't be. And I think in championship teams, coaches find ways around that. I think everyone has to be bought into their role and be willing to put the team first for teams to win championships. So to me, when you've got guys who have egos like that and who don't want to come in off the bench, that's when it doesn't work. look at the Warriors. Steph Curry came in off the bench. It's a topic that's come up, back during the 2022 championship run when he was coming back from injury. He came off the bench and he willingly did it and wanted to do it. That's the same kind of thing. If Manu Ginobili can come off the bench, if a Steph Curry can come off the bench, that should set a precedent. But you still see it around the league where there are players who have that level of ego. But to me, that's when it doesn't work. That's when it doesn't work for the team. Someone also mentioned too that Klay might work because a lot of fours now, the power forward even is like a stretch four. And I will say that I agree. A lot of teams go with the stretch four. Steve said that. Thank you, Steve Wilton. And I think Klay could possibly hold up with that. So I agree. And also since he's lost a step, maybe some of the slower fours he can keep up with as well. So, it is what it is. I just don't like the Warriors going small in general. Like, I just still don't think the small lineup is a positive for the Warriors and going to make them more competitive than they were a season ago. So that's kind of my biggest takeaway overall. Back to the starting thing, though, I think that if CP3 is going to be a success on this team, he has to put the team first. Like, that's the reason why the Warriors have worked and they've won championships, because you have humble stars like Steph Curry who are willing to put the team first. And even to me, Draymond is a player who I don't want to say, he has an ego. Klay Thompson, is another guy who people have said wouldn't come off the bench. I don't know. But regardless, everyone has to be bought into whatever their role is. And I do think that Draymond has been willing to put himself on the line for the team. I think he has done enough over the course of his tenure to earn his right. But I think that CP3 coming in as a new piece to a team that's won multiple championships has to be willing to do whatever is asked of him in terms of the role, whether that's starting or coming in off the bench. And so if there is that ego and he doesn't want to do it, then I just don't think it's going to work. I don't think he's going to work with the Warriors. They can't afford that. You cannot afford an ego in the locker room on this team. They can't afford any type of, just a malcontent in the locker room. Like, they've already dealt with enough of that. So that's my thought, is that I think it is overblown. I
totally agree. You're speaking rationally, Kylen. You absolutely make sense. By the way, the Lakers, just to put it in perspective here for who exactly Klay would guard in this specific matchup, the expected starting lineup, and this could change. I'm just basing this off what I'm seeing right now online, is that D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves is the Lakers starting backcourt. So in theory, you're going to have Steph and Chris Paul guarding those two, which means someone's going to be undersized against Austin Reeves. Their front court is LeBron James and Jared Vanderbilt. So Klay and Wiggins will handle those two. Again, you're undersized. Both those two players are bigger than Wiggins and Klay. And then Anthony Davis is your starting center. And so Kevon Looney is going to have to handle that. I'm not excited about that matchup. I'm with you. Any reaction from that? Now that you know specifically that Klay's likely going to be matched up with Jared Vanderbilt, who, look, is not an offensive machine, but he's a big dude. Maybe that's a good matchup for him. Maybe it's a little favorable. I don't hate it. What's your reaction to that matchup?
I don't think Vanderbilt's the worst matchup for Klay because of what you just mentioned. Mentioned, Vanderbilt's more of a defensive player. He's long, he'll rebound, he hustles, he runs hard up and down the court, he's scrappy, but he's no offensive juggernaut, doesn't have any special ball skills, shooting ability, anything like that. So, post moves as well. He's pretty lanky. So I think that also could be a positive for Klay, because that was my one question, as well, when you get some bigger posts, that could they bully Klay a little bit down low? And I don't think Jared Vanderbilt's going to do any of that. So I think that would be an okay matchup for Klay. I would be more concerned about other teams, and, different matchups would concern me more with him at that position. I think Jared Vanderbilt would be okay.
That's fair. And just to wrap up the Klay discussion here real fast, because I was doing some research on his numbers last year. Again, he led the NBA in three-pointers made. I think he had 301. His overall three-point shooting percentage was outstanding. For the year, I believe he shot 41.1%, which is outstanding. My two concerns with Klay, here's what I feel like what I learned watching Klay Thompson last year is that he is not at his best when he's trying to create his own shot. Like when I'm seeing him dribble a lot, I start getting concerned.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't like that. Like I don't like him shooting off the dribble. I prefer him getting set up. We all know about his infamous 60-point game when he, I think, dribbled 11 times that whole game or something. Like he's not made to create his own shot. He's made to thrive off other players setting him up. And so his three-point shooting obviously was outstanding, except for the very end in that Lakers series, which was just a disaster. But his two-point shooting, like I'm hearing mixed things. Like Connor Letourneau, our mutual buddy over at the San Francisco Chronicle, wrote a piece about Klay today, and he mentioned that Klay's two-point shooting, his mid-range shooting, more specifically, was solid. I was looking at it, and as a mid-range shooter, I think he's right around the 41% mark. Like more specifically, from 10 to 14 feet last year, Klay shot 35.8%. That's not good at all. I don't know what happened there. From 15 to 19 feet, he was a little better. He was 43.8%. But those aren't outstanding numbers. To put it in perspective for you, Chris Paul last year shot over 50%, 50.3% more specifically, from that 10 to 14 range, 10 to 14 feet range. And then when he went 15 to 19 feet, it dropped a little bit, but just to 46.4. So Klay's got to figure out, I feel like the more close range shooting, his shooting percentage as a whole, when it's not a three-point shot, I think does need to improve, because last year his field goal percentage, just shooting twos, he shot 46.7%. His teammate Klay Thompson shot 57.7% just shooting twos. All right, these are excluding three-point shots. So I feel like if Klay just kind of simplifies his offensive game, that alone could turn things around. And I don't know what could lead to that. I don't know if the better conditioning could lead to that. But I guess I'll finish on that note regarding the Klay Thompson subject. Any last thoughts from you, Kylen, before we move on?
I mean, I think that no matter what shots he's taking, Klay Thompson has to have better shot selection and be more efficient than what we saw last season. Oh, hey, Steve, stop. We're on the same wavelength. Good job. I mean, that's the number one thing, though, that comes to mind is the shot selection I thought was off at times last season. He was inconsistent. He forced things sometimes, and he has to be more efficient offensively for this team to be successful. We saw it in spurts last year, and there were games where Klay was flowing. He was in rhythm. And then there were also times where he was forcing it. I think exactly like you said, Cy, when he put the ball on the floor, good things did not happen. When he simplified his game, he's a great spot-up shooter. The catch and shoot is his friend. When he's playing off ball, like I said, when he puts the ball down on the floor, I just feel like oftentimes it was too much. And the thing is, if you put the ball on the floor, it's got to be for a reason. Like drive it to the hole, but instead it always seemed like it was too much. There was indecisiveness, dribbling around on the perimeter. It just didn't get him anywhere. So I think it's got to be more efficient, more decisive, catch and shoot, or go to the rack, one or the other. But I agree that I like it better when he's a spot up shooter versus creating his own shot. But I don't mind Klay either putting the ball on the floor if he's going to drive.
Yeah.
But I don't think he did that. I don't think he did that enough either. Instead it's, like I said, just kind of dribbling out around on the perimeter and, sidestep shoot and whatever. And it just was not successful for him.
Yeah.
But I think that the big thing is the shot selection, getting him in rhythm, hopefully will help increase his efficiency. But hopefully this season he comes in a little bit more relaxed, because I thought last year coming off the injury, still there were times where he looked like he was forcing it. I'm hoping that just part of it is his approach to the game will just be a little bit looser. I think there were times that he looked like he was playing tight. So I think that's a huge factor that maybe doesn't even necessarily point to the physics of how he's playing the game, but just more the mental side.
Absolutely. And a few people in the comments talking about, and Solo here, I think putting it pretty nicely here. Solo writes, he's 6'7". I think he needs to start posting up smaller guards and shooting that turnaround. I like his fadeaway. I totally agree with you. That's a part of his game I think he should also work on as well. So we'll see. He's going to be more well-conditioned. He went back to his traditional routine this offseason of going to the playgrounds in Southern California and just playing standard pickup basketball. It's what he likes to do. And I do think a lot of the Warriors' fate will hinder on Klay Thompson. But I love the fact that it's a contract year. I do. Now, there is the other side of that coin, which is that maybe like the pressure of a contract year will only make things worse. And I hope we don't go there, but we'll find out what's going to happen.
Like I said, I just feel like with these kinds of vets, I don't think it'll go worse for him versus like a younger player who might feel that pressure more. Because I agree. That's obviously a big concern with any player going into a contract year. But like, I don't know. I just feel like hopefully Klay's been around the block enough where it's not going to make it worse. But hey, it remains to be seen. So I guess we'll find out.
I love it. I just loved your hey. So Chris Paul is going to be starting Saturday, and again, short term We discussed this on the most.
Oh, sorry. Can I add one more thing on the Klay topic?
Of course, you have to ask.
I like that. Sorry, I like that he had so much confidence and flat out said that his mindset this season is that his goal is to be an all-star. Which
yes.
I will say, I thought that was encouraging just to have him bring in that level of confidence and desire this season. And I would love to see Klay be an all-star again. Sorry, I don't know why that just popped in my head, remembering him, that quote when he was on the podium. But I think it's positive that he's coming in with confidence. I think that's huge. That hopefully will help him play looser. I don't know, but like, would love to see Klay back in the All-Star game.
Yeah, I finished last night's show playing that soundbite, teasing that we were going to talk about this today. And look, Klay Thompson, before his ACL injury, made 5 straight All-Star appearances. I mean, this was a common thing for Klay to make All-Star teams. He was the best shooting guard in the NBA for a good amount there. I mean, it was him and Harden, but everyone knew Harden was lazy on defense, and he was such an ISO player, whereas Klay was making shots that won you world championships. And so I agree. If we get the Klay that was making All-Star games, oh man, forget it. The Warriors are massively huge in that regard. Nigel Spar, if Game 6 Klay makes a comeback, forget it. 5th world title in 10 years. Sign me up.
Heck yeah.
The Warriors, again, they play Saturday. Chris Paul will be starting in place of Draymond Green, who has the sprained ankle. Again, nothing serious, but the downside to that clearly is he's not out there right now. Conditioning, right? I mean, Draymond Green's been known in a lot of off seasons to get a little lazy, and then it takes him a little while to get his conditioning rounded up, whereas this off season, he's reportedly been working out. I hope the sprained ankle does not hinder his conditioning so he stays fresh and in shape for the season, but it's also preventing him from working out with a lot of new players, right? And developing chemistry and that flow with other players to get the timing down. So Chris Paul is starting. The drama of whether or not he comes off the bench is held off for at least another day or two or game or two. And Steve Kerr had this great comment, I hope it's great, about the fact that what he's most excited for with Chris Paul are the non-Steph minutes. And I totally agree. And let's hear what Steve Kerr has to say about that. How
much does it help to have Chris Paul's playmaking to replace Draymond's in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, Chris is it's hard to describe the feeling of having Chris Paul on our team. He's one of the great point guards of all time. We've been competing against him for so many years. He's one of the guys that I've coached against where you just shake your head at how good he is and how particular he is about every possession, getting his team a good shot, getting himself a good shot, getting everybody organized. He's so smart. He's a winner. And so to have him on our side is amazing. And, I think maybe the biggest benefit that he will bring to us is his ability to run an offense when Steph is off the floor. I mean, they're going to be great together too, but the biggest problem we've had since I've been here is the non-Steph minutes. Even when we had Kevin and that group that won, back-to-back titles, our non-Steph minutes, our whole goal was to just put a great defensive team on the floor and win the game, win those minutes with defense. We've never really generated great offense with Steph on the bench, and Chris will help us do that.
That's interesting. That was something really stuck out there. I don't know if you heard that too, Kylen, which is that the biggest problem he's ever faced as the head coach are non-Steph minutes. That's crazy. What are your thoughts on Kerr's words there?
Yeah, I thought that comment was fascinating. It's funny that he said he feels like that's the biggest problem because, I think we've all had our fair share of issues with last season, especially just given the way the Warriors came back and were a 500 team after winning the 2022 NBA championship and brought back most of the core. I would say one of the biggest challenges would also be developing youth and trying to figure out how to incorporate the young players. But aside from that, I would say that non-Steph minutes, it's completely fair. I know that one thing the Warriors have played with the last few years is, breaking up Steph and Draymond, possibly, utilizing Draymond to help facilitate in the second unit. Jordan Poole, in being signed to that massive contract, part of his responsibility was supposed to be helping to facilitate offense with the second unit, and it ended up not working out. So now adding Chris Paul into the mix could possibly fill that void. I did think it was interesting that he pointed that out even during the KD years. Like that is not something that I would have crossed my mind. I would say in recent years, like the last 3 seasons, post KD made sense to me. But I was surprised that he pointed that out even back when KD was with the Warriors. But the last couple seasons, I could see it for sure because they have not really had anyone who could truly run that second unit and generate offense up to par. And like I said, that was the intention the Warriors had when signing Jordan Poole. It didn't work out. Too high turnover, forced it too much. I think he's a player who's possibly better off ball, and to where it just didn't work out. And then splitting up Draymond and Steph is difficult to do throughout a game. So I think this is absolutely critical to have Chris Paul. But to me, the other big takeaway in Steve Kerr saying this is, will Chris Paul in fact be coming off the bench? Because for him to be playing in the non-Steph minutes, that's what it would look like. I mean, if he's starting, I just don't see how they're going. Like, again, it's kind of similar to when they tried to stagger Steph and Draymond minutes. It gets a lot more complicated when they're both starting. I think, and I've said this since they signed CP3, he should be coming off the bench. I think everything Steve said is absolutely right. I think he could be electric in generating offense in the second unit. Chris Paul had some great comments to say as well about Jonathan Kuminga. And there's been a ton of speculation about how those two could possibly work in an offense, in a pick and roll. I think they could be a lot of fun. He spoke very highly of Jonathan Kuminga, and I really hope those two are developing chemistry during preseason, during training camp. That's something that I'm very excited to see. But to me, CP3 has to be in the second unit. That's where he does bring that value in the non-Steph minutes.
Absolutely. And one thing I'm super excited for, talking about that second unit, are the 2 youngsters on the Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody. And I'm glad this is the last soundbite for the show tonight. I'm glad someone asked Steve Kerr what his thoughts are for year 3 for Kuminga and Moody. And look, to me, if Kuminga does not live up to the hype, if Moody is either treated poorly again with DNP, Santa Cruz minutes, short leashes, and this goes for Kuminga as well. In other words, if either or both of these two have let down years, I don't think the Warriors win a championship. I really do think it's that simple. It's that black and white. But I'm also very curious to hear what Steve Kerr has to say about him because he controls their minutes. And here are his thoughts.
Jonathan and Moses have had interesting, first 2 seasons in the league. And I guess since the new era of you guys, young players have come and gone, but they're still here. Just how important is this year 3 for both of them? And where do you see them contributing to this team?
Yeah, I mean, year 3 is always a big moment in everybody's career. You get a couple of years under your belt and, really it's time to take that next step. And both guys have been working like crazy all summer. And I have plenty of confidence in both of them. They have each helped us win a lot of games in their first 2 years. They happened to come to a championship team right away. First year out of first year in the league, being with a title team. That's not an easy thing. But they're both working and getting better every day. And I have a lot of confidence in both.
That's music to my ears. I really hope they play and get see minutes. Any final thoughts, Kylen, on that topic or anything else as we wrap up the show tonight?
Year 3 is going to be huge. I think Moody and Kuminga need to be significant role players for this team to be successful. When Moody was given a longer leash and given more opportunities, he showed up. In the postseason, I thought he played well. Jonathan Kuminga, on the other hand, initially was on a short leash to start the season, started getting more minutes kind of after the new year, excelled, and then had some struggles during the playoffs. Things came up about the attitude, the comments of the Chronicle, all that other stuff about the way he was handling not playing or not possibly being given the role that he wanted to. I think he matures. I think every single year there's more growth, more learning opportunities. I still think Jonathan Kuminga has an elite skill set. His athleticism, we've seen it at times. I know the only possible criticism we've touched on is possibly rebounding, but the athleticism, he got much better at defense. Like, that's the one thing. Last year, I saw significant improvements defensively from Jonathan Kuminga. You see his verticality and what he can bring around the rim offensively. I like the idea of him in the pick and roll with CP3. I'm really excited to see what he can do. Hopefully there was growth. Hopefully there was maturity over the summer. And I think that Moses Moody proved his worth with his play in the postseason last year. Give him more minutes. Give him a role in the second unit, please. That's my message.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
And just to parlay off that, like, I hope Kerr doesn't limit Kuminga's minutes because for some reason he has this rule in his head that Wiggins and Kuminga should not be playing together. Like, get rid of this rigidity in terms of like these positions and who should be playing. Like, let them play together. Who cares? Like, just don't stop someone, don't hinder someone just because another player is on the team you like better and you don't feel like they should play together on the floor. That's crazy to me. By the way, Jonathan Kuminga turns 21 in 3 days. He's not even 21 yet. Happy early birthday, Jonathan Kuminga. October 6th. So it's a Friday birthday for him. Let's hope he's not hungover for the Lakers game. Kid, you got to impress. But if you go out and celebrate for your 21st, you only turn 21 once. So I wouldn't blame him, but try to moderate, kid. And I'm actually in agreement with you on the rebounding thing. I want to see Kuminga improve. And here's what, and I don't think we did the show together, but there was one show over the summer where I was looking at other players who are comparable to Jonathan Kuminga in terms of position. I was looking at like Paul George, for example. A lot of people compare him to Kawhi Leonard. And those players early in their careers started to rebound in the 6 rebound a game range, 7 rebound a game range. So it's not out of the realm of expectations for Jonathan Kuminga to increase that number. Step it up. Play that inside game a little more. Grab those boards, kid, and hopefully you'll get the minutes as a result. So, so that's my thoughts on that. Anything else, Kylen? I think we're pretty much done here, right? Did we forget anything? Are we all good?
That's about it.
All right.
Very exciting. Training camp is here. Let's go.
Absolutely. You'll be back with me Thursday night for another show. So we'll be back at it together then. Until then, if anything important happens, we'll host a show. Otherwise, we'll see you either tomorrow or Thursday. I don't know what's next on the docket. But Kylen, thank you. Thank you, everyone. And we'll be back at this soon. Bye-bye.
Night, y'all.